Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets, alongside Kyle Krabs, the host of Locked On Dolphins. Kyle, Dolphins have a chance to make the playoffs in this game. An incredibly turbulent season. Well, you can go first. What are your keys to victory for Miami?
I think the first thing they need to do a better job of this time around when they play the Jets is pressuring Aaron Rodgers. And that is in large part because the Dolphins are probably going to be without Kendall Fuller, their second corner. And that gets into some matchup potential with a veteran quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who he's always been aggressive. He's always got up to the line of scrimmage and seen a matchup that he likes and is not afraid to take shots down the field. And, Jalen Ramsey had his hands full with Garrett Wilson the first time these two teams played. And then if you don't have Kendall Fuller and it's Kader Kohu or it's Storm Duck, if you're an 11 personnel as the other outside corner that's getting matched with Devontae Adams, I don't like that matchup, just to be completely transparent. So, and I know Aaron is out there hunting for TD pass number 500. So he's going to be slinging it. So I think for Miami, getting after particularly the offensive tackles, and I know that's a spot for the Jets that's banged up with Tyron Smith and Olu Fashanu and Morgan Moses, I know is banged up and trying to play. I don't know if he's going to try to play this week or not. I know we're recording a little early in the week, but that for me is one of the big primary keys to victories. Don't let Aaron get up to the line of scrimmage, see matchups that he likes, and then also simultaneously have time to set up at the top of the drop to take those shots down the field, because that is where I think there's a lot of potential for chunk plays, either with completed passes or penalties down the field.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, I do think about the first game these teams played this year was one of the Jets' best offensive performances of the year. It's one of the first times they moved the ball. For me, I think a lot of this comes down to how badly the Jets want to play this game, because we did not see a team week 17 against Buffalo that looked all that interested in competing. This was a team, and I think there have been a lot of frustrating things about this season from a Jets fan perspective. But one of the things that's most frustrating to me is how frequently this team just loses its competitive fire when something goes wrong during a game. It happened, go back to week 7 against Pittsburgh. Jets played a great first 29 minutes of that game. Right before halftime, Aaron Rodgers throws an interception, and things just snowballed from there. And by the time the Steelers were running out the clock on their last drive, Jets knew they were running the ball, and the Steelers still were able to run it successfully. I mean, I think, I'm very hesitant to call out players for effort level because, I'm not on the field, but in that situation, it just looked like the Jets gave up. I think the same thing was true a few weeks later when the Jets played in Arizona against the Cardinals. There was just a total no-show. Things snowballed on them, and they're just little things like, one guy's making a tackle, the second and third guys aren't going in to help him. Last week against Buffalo, that game completely snowballed on them. There's one play that was very symbolic for me. There was a fumble by Garrett Wilson. It was an ugly play overall. It was a screenplay that was very poorly designed. There was really no way for Max Mitchell to hit his block that Garrett Wilson needed to spring him. Wilson fumbles the ball, but Aaron Rodgers was near the ball, and I don't know if you saw the play, but essentially he did like a little dive away from the ball. He did like a little thing. He dove to make it look like he was trying to get the ball, but he wasn't really trying to get the ball. And that's not to call Aaron out. That's just a kind of a symbolic thing. I said on Monday's episode that when I think back to the 2024 Jets, that might be the play that I remember, because it just really sums up a lot of what's happened this season. I mean, look, the Jets have had a lot of issues. They've had the coaching has not been up to par. The decision in season to fire the coach, despite Robert Saleh's shortcomings, was not a good decision. The team has really fallen apart since Saleh was fired. Jets have dealt with injuries. You can't deal with that. Jets have dealt with players who formerly were great, aging, like Tyron Smith. There's only so much you can do about things like that. One thing you can control is your compete level. Last week against Buffalo, I did not see a high compete level from this team. So as much as anything, it's going to be a question of, how badly do the Jets want to be in this game? How badly do they want to end the season with a win? Because I think everything really starts there. This is these situations are always a bit tricky. On the road, week 18 divisional game, a playoff spot potentially on the line. You see weird results in games like this sometimes. The question is, will the Jets show up and play hard? And that's the question. Or will this be what they call a U-Haul game, where the Jets players already loaded up, getting ready to get out of town. They've loaded up the U-Hauls with all the furniture, and they're just waiting for Monday. I think that's an open question.
Yeah, I reflect back on specifically the last 10 years of Dolphins football. And that's why I don't think any Dolphins fan, regardless of how bad the season's been for New York, feels good about this game, because you can go back to 2013 when this team was 8-6 and had games against teams with losing records in Buffalo and the New York Jets, and they lost them both and scored 7 points in those two games combined. The following year in 2014, they were 8-7 and lost at home to the Jets to finish 8-8 and lose the potential for a winning season. And you go to 2017 with Adam Gase, and they were 6-7 with 3 to go, and they played the Bills twice and lost both games. 2018, they had the Miami Miracle. They beat the Patriots to go to 7-6, and they go Minnesota, Jacksonville, and Buffalo, and those were not good teams. Or the Jacksonville team in particular was 5-11. That was a bad team. And they laid down and they didn't show up. They had 183 yards of offense in that game. And then they had 4 turnovers in week 17 against the Bills and lost that game 42-17. So it's just the last 10 years, regardless of where Miami's at and playoff potential and winning records, it doesn't matter who they play. There's been about every other year, there's been one of these just total letdown performances. And I think that lingers in the back of Miami fans' minds coming into this game because, as you said, for as much as gone wrong for the Jets this season, who'd they have their best offensive performance of the year against? It was the Dolphins. So that's there's a lot of anxiety, I think, for Dolphins fans coming into a game like this, regardless of the vibes for both teams.
And the person to be who always needs to make a joke. I shouldn't say this because it's been bad enough season for the Jets fans. I don't need to bring back bad memories, but the Jets saw that 2018 finish from the Dolphins, said, "We want that coach. That's our guy." That was the offseason where the Jets hired Adam Gase.